Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Sam Furio. I'm the outreach coordinator for the Building Decarbonization team at the Maryland Department of the Environment. Our team is responsible for implementing Maryland's Building Energy Performance Standards, aka BEPS. Thank you for joining the fourth session of the Benchmarking and Reporting Working Group. We've got the whole Building Decarbonization team in attendance today, and you'll be hearing from all of us throughout this webinar. Dr. Zach Brazola, our section head, also known as Dr. Decarb, and Chris Menser, our technical specialist, are also here today. Zach and Chris, if you just want to come on camera, wave, say hey.
Afternoon, everyone.
Hey, Zach.
Hello.
All right, there's Chris. We're good to go. Mics are working. Excuse me. Today we'll be covering some BEPS updates. It's 2025. We've got some news for you, and we're showing the new BEPS portal 1.0, which can be found on the BEPS website today. You'll now be able to access your unique building identifier, or UBID, through this portal. And today we'll show you how to enter that UBID into Portfolio Manager. Towards the end of this presentation, we'll be answering some FAQs with Dr. Decarb. So I hope you can stay around for that. Before we get started, just a couple notes about run of show. As per usual, if you've attended these sessions before, you know how they go, but if you're new, this session will be recorded and uploaded to MDE's BEPS YouTube playlist. All materials shared during the webinar will be posted in the video description after it's uploaded, and that includes the slide deck. So if you're missing anything, forgot something, you can watch the recording and get all the materials on YouTube soon. The chat has been disabled, so we will hopefully have time for Q&A at the end of the session after Dr. Decarb goes through some FAQs. And so if you want to submit a question for us to answer at the end, you can get to the Q&A feature of this webinar by going to the circle, triangle, square button in the bottom right-hand corner. Hover over it, it says Activities. If you click there, you'll see Q&A. You can go there to submit your question or your thoughts, and we'll work to get to that today as time allows. If not, we'll work to get to it in future sessions. We're also going to be doing a poll feature at the beginning of this session, and you can access the poll via this Activities button as well. So circle, triangle, square, that's the only button you need to know for the webinar. So without further ado, let's get moving a bit. If you require an overview of BEPS, we would point you to the myriad of resources available on the department's BEPS website. We recently just made a couple overhauls online, so if you haven't tuned into the website recently, I think it'd be good to check back in with that. There's a lot of new material. You can access the website by scanning the QR code on the left side of the screen or by searching Maryland BEPS in Google. If you'd like to be added to our BEPS email list, you can do so by scanning the QR code on the right side of the screen. If you've done these sessions before, you've heard this spiel a few times, but I'd encourage you to check this email list QR code out because we've been transitioning our email platforms for scheduling working groups and info sessions. So if you've done sessions before, all of your contact information will have transferred over, but it might behoove you to just see what this new platform is like, and see what working groups are active and what you can sign up for. We'll be sending all updates and announcements for working groups and access links via this new platform. So check that out today. If after reviewing, as always, if after reviewing all these, the website, guidance documents, etc., you still have questions, you can contact us at the email and phone number at the bottom of the screen. So, agenda for today, as I said, we're going to have that poll question. We're going to talk New Year, New BEPS, 2025 BEPS updates and resources. We're going to do an introduction to the BEPS portal. Dr. Decarb is going to run through that with you. We're going to do a BEPS portal demo, how you create an account, find your UBID, and how the UBID relates to your portfolio manager profile. And then we're also going to do some FAQs with Dr. Decarb and Q&A as time allows. So that's the run of show for today. Let's do the poll question real quick. So circle, triangle, square, bottom right-hand corner is how you get to the poll. We're going to go ahead and launch it. So the poll feature should now be active. If you want to go to the circle, triangle, square button, activities, and give us your thoughts. The poll question for today is, which statement on the screen best describes your current benchmarking status in Portfolio Manager? So haven't created an account, I've got an account, haven't entered any data, I've entered my data, but my property data, but not entered any energy data. I've entered all my data, and I've finally shared my account with MDE's BEPS account. So just let us know what you're thinking, what applies to you in there. Give it another minute. Circle, triangle, square, bottom right-hand corner is how you get to the poll feature. Okay. 70 people on the call, only 31 votes. If anyone wants to get their thoughts in, give it another 10 seconds or so. All right, so let's go ahead and end the poll. Thank you all for working with that. Looks like there's 34 votes submitted. We've got a good amount of folks that they've entered property data and energy use data into their portfolio manager account. That's great. There's also some folks who haven't created a portfolio manager account yet. That's totally fine. You're not behind the times at all. It's a free tool. Go ahead and create it whenever you're able, and there's free online trainings you can take advantage of too as well. So that in combination with some of the stuff we'll talk about today, I think will set you up in a good way. So thanks for that. Let's move it along. So as I said, 2025, we've got some new updates to BEPS. So it's been a little while since we had a working group session. We hope you all had a nice holiday. I think there's some crucial updates on the screen. First and foremost, the BEPS regulation is final and in effect as of December 23rd, 2024. So building energy performance standards are in effect for the state of Maryland. I think a really important point here on the screen is, if you've attended these webinar sessions before and you've been in tune with BEPS, you know that we have an annual benchmarking report deadline of June 1st, 2025, or June 1st of each year. And we released a compliance advisory recently noting that in an effort to assist building owners with their transition to the new BEPS requirement, the department intends to treat all initial benchmarking reports submitted by September 1st, 2025 as timely. So, we hope this will give building owners more time to meet this 2025 BEPS reporting requirement. So if you want to read the full compliance advisory, it's online. But please note that reports submitted by September 1st will be considered timely. Excuse me. We've also released that new BEPS portal I mentioned earlier, Portal 1.0, where you can find the updated list of covered buildings. You can find your unique building identifiers or UBIDs, and also some exemption forms. So I think the portal is a great resource. I know a lot of you have been asking where some of these, where's the covered buildings list, and the BEPS portal is the place to go for that. Also, as a result of this working group and thank you all to all your feedback on the draft guidance documents we released last year. We've updated the benchmarking guide for 2025, and that is available online today. We'll also release it to you all here in this webinar. And if you're viewing this after we upload it to YouTube, it's going to be in the YouTube description. So thank you all for your help with that document, and it's final and a great place to start. And so here's just a little snapshot of that. During the last session of this working group, we reviewed how to submit data to Montgomery County and MDE. We released a guidance document on how to view direct emissions in Portfolio Manager. And so we've taken this guidance document and combined it with this benchmarking guide. So this is a one-stop shop resource for everyone for benchmarking. And you can find it on the BEPS website. Everything we're going to walk you through today can be found in this guide. And so this guide includes guidance for benchmarking in Energy Star Portfolio Manager, exclusions and special cases, including exclusions and special cases for statewide BEPS and also Montgomery County's BEPS program. There's includes a campus compliance guide and also instructions on benchmarking district energy usage. So go ahead and read that today when you have time. Next slide, just wanted to reiterate, new year. We threw a lot of content at you last year. For benchmarking, there are some energy exclusions that can be, or energy uses that can be excluded from your benchmarking reports. That's energy use associated with food service facilities, energy use associated with electric vehicle charging, with that associated with heating outdoor pools, parking lots, combustion equipment if it's required by state or federal law, and other exclusions from Energy Star Portfolio Manager, which you can find in the regulations technical memorandum TM 24-01. And again, you can find that online today. And you can just want to pitch the guide again, you can find details on how to make those exclusions in that benchmarking guide. So we're talking about the BEPS portal. There's Energy Star Portfolio Manager. There's a couple software tools, being thrown around, and I just wanted to clear the air on what each one's purpose is and how they correlate with each other. So there are two different tools that MDE and building owners will use in this process. So BEPS portal and Energy Star Portfolio Manager. You can think of the portal like a home improvement store, a place where you get the tools you need to get the work done. Energy Star Portfolio Manager is where you actually go to get the project done. It's the project site. The benchmarking guide and BEPS website together make up the blueprint that show you how to get the work done. So that's high level how the portal and Portfolio Manager relate. And so just diving into it a little more, on the top of the screen, you'll see an orange circle for the portal. You can use the portal to find your UBID, your unique building identifier, look at the updated covered buildings list, and also submit exemption requests. The bottom portion in that pan box, the bottom flow chart outlines the benchmarking report submission process. So notice building owners and MDE in green circles. Starting from the left, building owners will set up an account on Portfolio Manager, add properties, enter data, enter property and energy use data, and verify that data. Moving right on the screen, first major step in reporting this data to MDE is sending that friend request to MDE through Portfolio Manager. You're just going to make a connect and share request. All the way on the right side, notice that MDE will accept this request to connect. You're going to receive a notification that we've accepted the request. And then building owners will go back into Portfolio Manager and share the data. And you're only going to share data for covered buildings, even if you're benchmarking smaller buildings for other purposes. So with that, how do you get to the BEPS portal? Well, I'm going to let Dr. Zach Brazola, Dr. Decarb walk you through that. So without further ado, Zach, if you want to walk them through the portal.
Yeah, absolutely. So you all are familiar already with or many of you might be familiar with the BEPS website, mde.maryland.gov/BEPS. And you can get to the portal right from the top. We've now have this big slider on the top, and you can see right here in yellow, this is the BEPS portal. You're just going to click right on that green one, and if it's not at the top, there's only 2 other pages to sign up for the webinars and to go to our YouTube page, but you can cycle through to the one you need. So you can click right there to go to the next steps. And this is just a high-level overview. But as you get to the next page, you're going to now be into what I like to call our quick start guide. And Sam, if we could advance the slide, you're going to be on our quick start guide, and it walks you through what to do if you've got an exempt building, what to do if you've got a covered building, what to do if you're not listed. It's kind of a condensed version to give you a quick primer on what you have to do, and then links to things like the benchmarking guide to read more details about actually benchmarking. And so that's meant to help you navigate. But as you get through that whole page, at the bottom, you'll actually get to the portal itself. And then you can click on that big green button on the page, and that's going to get you some more information and or get you over to the portal. But before you go there, there's also information, general regulation resources, portfolio manager trainings and resources, information about funding for retrofit projects through the Clean Buildings Hub. So we really want you all to take that page in, use it as a resource, go back to it. Because if you have a question, chances are between what's on that page and what's linked in the resources, you can find an answer to your question. And that's going to be the fastest way for you to find out more. And as always, you can email and call us, but we're a pretty small team, and so we do our best to get back to you as soon as we can, but it will take some time. And so if you can use all the resources to help yourself, that's going to be the fastest way to move forward. All right, so you've gotten to this page. Now, once you click through, enter the portal, you'll actually get to the BEPS portal. And if you want to, you can bookmark this link and come back directly to this later. But here on the screen is what the BEPS portal looks like when you first enter. The main function of the portal is as the covered buildings list. And so this is going to be constantly updated as building owners apply for exemption in addition to the list. And there's a little bit of instruction here for how to kind of navigate through that portal. But for the most part, the easiest way is, first, if you're trying to find your building or buildings, first filter down on the city or the zip code or the county to try to narrow things down. And then you can put in your street address as well. And I will note that sometimes you want to be careful if you start doing your street address. Sometimes it's drive, sometimes it's DR with the shortened abbreviations, like street is often ST. So as much as you can filter down and then put your address in, that's going to help you find your building. And then you're going to click on, and then once you think you've got your building, if you click on the UBID, which is on the left side of the screen, the long blue alphanumeric thing, that is your unique building ID. And you can click on that. And if it, we'll go to the next, actually, before I go, so yeah, you can enter your street address here. Perfect. We've got our nice illustrations. And so that helps you find additional information. Or filter through. And I'll also note, we're not showing it on this screen grab, but there's also to the right our estimated gross floor area for your building. And both that floor area and the primary use type, those are the best available information we have about your building, but those will be updated when you submit your benchmarking report. So if your building has more square footage or less, or it says multifamily housing, but you're an office building, that will get changed as you after you submit your benchmarking report. So that's going to happen over time. All right, so once you've now filtered down, you found your building, you also have to click enter anytime you're searching in these boxes. It just makes sure that it goes quickly. Now, once you've done that, if we go to the next slide, you're going to see your building. And here we're using a state building in Annapolis. And this blue thing on the left is your UBID. And we use that because it's based on the actual location of that building in the world, based on its geography, and the geometry of the building itself. And so this UBID can pass across jurisdictions, and everyone knows what it does. So if you actually click on that UBID, you can view it on a map. And so this is actually going to let you verify that your UBID is assigned correctly to the building being benchmarked. It's really a benefit of the UBID itself. It means something, and you can see that we're centered right on that building. That's the one we're looking at. So that's what the UBID is, and you're going to actually want to copy that UBID from the list or from right here, and you're going to use it in Portfolio Manager, which we'll talk about in a second. But what if you go through that searching and your building's not listed? Well, if your building is not listed, but it meets the definition of a covered building, you are still required to meet the BEPS requirements. So in order to continue with this process, you're going to need to request a UBID. So back on that main screen, you've done your searching, you haven't found anything. You're going to click in that red circle, click here to add your building, to request to add your building to the list. And at that point, you're going to be prompted to register for an account in the BEPS portal. And the only time you need an account is if you're trying to add your building to the list, or if you're trying to submit an exemption form for the list, for a building on the list. So these accounts, most building owners are not even going to need an account. It's just if you're trying to ask for changes to be made that you need this. But if you do, you'll get to this register screen. You're going to register as a new user, and that's going to have basically when you register for an account, you're going to now enter some information, and you need to importantly confirm your email address. And we know so it's important. You're going to get an email that says, please confirm this account. And you have to click that and confirm it before you can log in. Otherwise, it's going to say that your password's wrong if you try to log in. And so really important that you confirm it, and then you can go log in. And again, most building owners are not going to need an account here. You're only going to need your account in Portfolio Manager to do the submissions. But this is if you're needing to be added or removed from or exempted from the list. So once you've registered, you'll now be at the Request a UBID form. It's going to ask you some basic information about the person submitting the form, the contact person, the building owner, and then some basic information about the building. It's the actual coordinates. So if you saw when we showed the UBID, it puts a spot right in the middle of the building with coordinates in the world, and we're going to ask for the latitude and longitude of your building. And you can get that. We have instructions on this form of how to get that right out of Google Maps. So it's pretty straightforward. And you're going to also provide information about the square footage and the primary property use type, and a couple other things. But it's a pretty straightforward request. You're going to follow the instructions and then submit it. And it's going to take us a little bit because we've got to go. We're going to do these in batches and go grab your footprint, the footprint of the buildings, create the UBIDs, and then update it in the portal and let you all know. But we'll be working on those as we can. But even while that's going on, you can still get started with the benchmarking process by creating an account in Portfolio Manager and starting to set things up. And Chris is going to show in a little bit in his demo how to add UBIDs both to a new property and an existing property, so you can move forward without having this. You just can't submit without having a listed UBID. So now that you have a UBID, what are you going to do with it? With that, I'm going to pass it over to Chris Menser, our building decarb specialist, to give a live demo of how to enter a UBID into Portfolio Manager. Take it away, Chris.
Thanks, Zach. Before I get started, if this is your first benchmarking reporting session, or you'd like to see maybe a demo, greater in-depth demo of Portfolio Manager, then I recommend that you go back and watch our session number 2 of the benchmarking reporting working group, where Charlotte from the Energy Star team does a great demo of walking through setting up your building in Portfolio Manager and actually entering data in there. So today, as Zach mentioned, I will be showing how to enter your building's UBID into Portfolio Manager. And we'll walk through 2 scenarios. First, how to enter it if you don't already have a building, and then second, if you already have your building. So let me share my screen. Sorry, I'm just pulling this up here. All right, so this is the login screen for Portfolio Manager. And there's a couple ways to get here from our website. You can click the link to get to this login screen. Or if you already have an account, you've been there, you may have already bookmarked it. So to log in, if you haven't created an account, you will need to first create an account. But if you already have one, I'm going to use my test account for testing purposes today. And then you're going to just sign in. And once you log into Portfolio Manager, you'll see a list of any buildings you have. If you don't have any, it's going to be blank. So first scenario, we're going to add our building. So you go over here to Properties and click Add a Property. Okay, and now we need to enter some basic property information. So first it's what type of building it is. And for today's example, we are going to use a office building. Next, number of buildings in your property. So here we're going to select one. And then your construction status. Since this is a test property, today I'm going to select test property. But if you're benchmarking, or when you're benchmarking, you will click on existing. Then click Get Started. And it's going to ask you some more basic information about your building. The name, so I'll just say it's office building. And then enter your address. And I'll use the same address that Zach used earlier when he was searching the portal. The zip code, city. Year built. And gross floor area. All right, now occupancy, and I'll select 90%. Okay, so as I scroll down, this is where we will be entering our UBID under standard ID other. So here I need to select unique building identifier, UBID. And then I will go down and I'll grab my UBID from the portal, or you might have it written down somewhere, and paste it in here. All right, and then if any of these apply to your building, then you'll select them. I'm gonna hit continue. And then we have some more building information. I'm not going to enter it for this demonstration for purposes of time, but then you click Add Property. And if you don't enter any values here, then you get this pop-up saying that default values will be used. Okay, so I've successfully created my property, my building, and entered my UBID. Now to go to see where your UBID is, you'll click on Details, and under here you can see this is our UBID that's been successfully entered. Okay, so that's the first scenario if you don't have a building and you're starting from zero. But what if you already have a building in Portfolio Manager? So let me just walk you through that. You can get back to your dashboard here with your properties by clicking My Portfolio in the left-hand corner. Okay, and I'm going to click on this building, which I've created as a demo example here. That's the same address you'll see from earlier. And under details, go down here and you can see there is, we don't have a UBID entered here. So to enter your UBID, you'll click under Unique Identifiers IDs and click Edit. And you can see here, this is blank. So we'll need to go back in here and same process, select Unique Building Identifier. And then again, just paste it in and hit save. And it's been updated. You get this success message here. And you'll see it again here. All right, so that is the demo for today. Next step when you're benchmarking is to enter your building's energy use information. And one way to do this is to request the utility data from your provider. And I'll hand it back to Sam to talk more about this.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. All right, let's get these slides back up. Okay. So thanks, Chris, for the demo. Moving right along. Let's see here. Okay, so as Chris mentioned, you've got your profile set up. You entered your property characteristics like he was showing you. You entered your UBID. Now you're gonna get your utility data, your energy usage, and load it into Portfolio Manager. And you can then see how you can then report to MDE and also see how your building is performing. For most buildings, you're going to be getting your electric and gas data directly from your electric and gas provider. We released the benchmarking guide, as I mentioned earlier. Well, we also released another comprehensive guide called Connecting with Your Energy Data Provider, this month. And so you can find it online today. And I think we're also going to drop a link in the chat for you all. It'll be on a YouTube description as well. But that's going to be a great resource for you all. Wherever you are in the state, you should be able to find, the utility provider that, you correlate with, and you will be able to see outputs like you'll see on the screen right now that highlights the data request process for the provider, what they need you to do to, create a data request and to, have that data sent to you. There's going to be contact information in case you run into any questions, or if you have inquiries, you can contact their departments. And there's also going to be resources for each provider, maybe step-by-step guides on using their own tools for supplying data, or additional contact information. Note that if you have delivered fuels, you also have to enter that as well, and it can be done manually. You can refer back to the second working group of this benchmarking and reporting working group second session for that demo on delivered fuels. You can also manually enter data to Portfolio Manager via spreadsheets. If you need to learn more about doing this, follow the instructions on the benchmarking guide, and also look at this Connecting with Your Energy Data Provider document. So each provider is going to have its own unique process for supplying you with their data. The information on this document was provided to MDE by Maryland's electric and gas companies. And I just note that in 2025, utility providers have 90 days to supply you with your energy data upon request. You know, in 2026 and beyond, utility providers have 30 days to provide you with that data. So that's an important thing to know for this year as you're working to meet the benchmarking report deadlines. So with that, I think next we'll move into some frequently, one more slide, my bad. And so speaking of, you know, exemptions, we mentioned earlier, you know, we got the rundown of the portal from Dr. Decarb. You know, I just wanted to quickly review what exemptions are within the regulation and how you can go about applying for those exemptions if they're applicable to you through the portal. So if you have any, or if you can see on the screen, there's kind of a comprehensive image on all types of exemptions within the regulation. So I'm going to walk you through them. On the left side of the screen, we have property types that are eligible for total exemption, and they are, you know, will need to apply for that exemption, and they'll submit their applications through that portal Zach showed you, and our compliance program will determine if it meets that characteristic and you know, if it should be granted an exemption. So just a reminder, those you know, property types are designated historic as by local, state, or federal law, separate from an inclusion in a historic district, public and non-public elementary and secondary schools, manufacturing buildings, agricultural buildings, demolished buildings, and also buildings owned by the federal government. There's also there are exemptions available, you know, within the regulation for providers of affordable housing, and that includes naturally occurring affordable housing, and those exemptions take shape as an application for reduced alternative compliance payments for that emissions standard. There's an exemption for buildings experiencing financial distress, and those with no occupancy. They can be exempt from all requirements, but they have to apply annually. There's also, an exemption to delay the establishment of your baseline performance for up to 3 years if the building is experiencing low occupancy. So that's just a walkthrough of those exemptions, and you know, this is what you'll see on the portal, that, you know, you find your building, you can click on this little clipboard action button on the left-hand side to you know, submit an application for an exemption, and these are forms that are available today, and there will be more forms released in the future. So just wanted to throw in that reminder about exemptions and how they relate with the portal that Zach showed you. And speaking of Zach, I wanted to move into our FAQ section of today's webinar, FAQ with Dr. Decarb. So I'm going to hand it back to Zach to walk you through some questions that we've been receiving from a lot of stakeholders. So take it away, Zach, when you're ready.
Great. Thank you all again. Hopefully this has been informative. Let's dive into some questions. I know some others have been asked in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll do our best to get to those today as well. So let's start. And I mentioned this before, but I just want to hit it home. Do I need to register to see if my building is a covered building on the BEPS portal? No. That account is only required if you need to submit a form to the department. You're able to view and search the list of covered buildings without registering. And you can grab the UBIDs and go take that over to Portfolio Manager just the same. It's only if you need to submit a form. So let's go to the next one. Do I need to register on the BEPS portal to submit my benchmarking report to the department? So no, again, your benchmarking report is submitted through Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And so you only need that portal account if you're submitting an exemption form, or we've gotten some questions about campus compliance, and I'll talk about that later. But if you've got things like that, those will be coming through the portal. But otherwise, that's just kind of setting you up. All of the proper reporting under the reporting requirements in the regulation are through Portfolio Manager. Let's go to the next question. So are connected units with wholly separate energy systems a single building? So the answer here is that generally yes. And this is connected units often in the case of a strip mall or something like that. Generally, yes. BEPS is focused on buildings as defined by the envelope, and the kind of building code definition of an envelope is all about exterior walls of a building. So we're not talking here about units, we're really talking about that building itself. And this is reflected in the covered building definition that's in the regulation. And you'll see one of the exemption forms is under 35,000 square feet. And you can see, as well as on our website, we have all of the information about what is a covered building. And you can dive in a little deeper there. Let's go to the next question. So I own a strip mall with many tenants. Each tenant is under 35,000 square feet, but the whole building is 60,000 square feet. Is that strip mall building covered? And the answer is yes. And here I found a strip mall. I'm not 100% sure if this is over 35,000 square feet, but I wanted to give you an example to see it. Right, this is a long building. There are some jogs in the building envelope, but it is one continuous building, even though there might be multiple tenants within that building. And so this would be, if it's over 35,000 square feet in whole, a covered building. And I know that's different for some of you folks that might be used to other jurisdictions. It relates to the fact that the Climate Solutions Now Act and then the BEPS regulations talks about covering buildings. And that's what we're focused on. So let's keep moving. If a collection of buildings has shared meters within those buildings, for individual units, but not across standalone buildings, are they counted as one building? And the answer there really is generally no. And again, a little more color here. If you look at if there's nothing else shared between these buildings, right? So there's you can have multiple units within a building shared, and as long as that building doesn't share any other systems, HVAC systems, we'll get to this a little bit more in a minute, but HVAC systems, electric or gas metering, etc., then that's going to be, just one building, and you wouldn't have this sharing. But the minute you start having meters shared across buildings, that's when you start to have to aggregate the square footage. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, so we get a lot of questions, and this is all boiling down to this one. We get a lot of questions about garden style apartments. And so if you have, I want to use this as a case study here to help people understand what we're talking about. So if you have separate garden style apartment buildings that aren't connected via the envelope, shared systems, and/or energy meters, these are separate buildings. And this, again, could apply to multiple buildings on one parcel as well. You could think about a shopping center that's got a big grocery store and then somewhere else like a big bank. If they aren't connected via the envelope, via shared systems and/or energy meters, they are separate buildings. If that separate building is over 35,000 square feet, they're covered, you need to report them. If they're under 35,000 square feet, they do not need to comply. If you have separate garden style apartment buildings that are connected via envelope, shared systems, and/or energy meters, those are connected buildings. And if their combined gross floor area is over 35,000 square feet, you're going to need to report them. If the combined gross floor area is under 35,000 square feet, they do not need to comply. And if they're listed on the covered buildings list, we have a form for that. And you can provide the information to get them exempted and on the form or on the portal. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, so I have some visuals here to help us understand what this looks like. And I hope this can kind of help us understand a little bit more. If that each number here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, is a separate building, by the envelope definition, less than 35,000 square feet. Each building has its own gas service or unit has its own gas service and electric service, and there's no shared HVAC amongst the buildings either, or domestic hot water. Then each building is not subject to Maryland BEPS. If it's listed on the covered buildings list, apply for exemption using the under 35,000 square feet form. So this is one example. Let's look at another one. If in this same example, each number still is a separate building defined by the envelope, less than 35,000 square feet, but the buildings are all on one of the following: a gas meter, electric meter, domestic hot water, HVAC is shared between all of the buildings, for example, any one of these, and that total square footage from buildings 1 through 7 is over 35,000 square feet, then it's going to be one covered building in that big orange box under BEPS, and you're going to report them as a building. And so there might be, again, part of the next bunch of months is the work we're going to be doing through the portal to help clean up that covered buildings list. It's possible that we have this listed as one covered building, and if it's truly covered, great, that's good. If it's multiple separate buildings and they are separate and not meeting this definition, then you're going to apply for exemption. And if you've got maybe 2 buildings here, but they're just one because they share a bunch of systems, you're actually going to use campus compliance to connect them, and we'll talk about that. I'll mention that a little bit later, but that's kind of another slightly unique one. But if it wasn't listed at all, you're going to request a UBID and get added to the list. And that's probably the most likely case, because we generally, in this case, would not have added them to our covered buildings list off the bat based on the publicly available information we used. So let's go to one more example here. If buildings 2, 3, and 4 are one physical building because of shared envelope, right? And just from above, it's pretty easy to see, and it might not be the case. There could be true dividers. These could be 3 standalone buildings. It's kind of hard to see from satellite, but you could imagine that this is just one big building, that total square footage is over 35,000 square feet. Regardless of whether each unit has its own gas or electric or HVAC or domestic hot water, this is one covered building denoted by the orange group, and just that one building and not 1 and 5 are going to report under Maryland BEPS. So these are hopefully providing a little bit more clarity, I think, to help you understand what is a covered building under BEPS and how this all works. Let's go forward. Yeah. So another question we get is, how do I request energy data from my utility, and how do I get help if I run into problems? Sam talked about that, but requesting your energy data, that guide is going to be your go-to place. It describes the process for each of the different utilities. There's 1 or 2 utilities that are still standing up their portals, and it says that in there. But for the most part, you're going to go to a system they have, and you're going to put in a request and go through their process. And then if there's an issue in that process, they also have a contact information. If you continue to have an issue with that, you can reach out to MDE and we'll work to help you through the BEPS email. And again, for most of these things, the BEPS email is going to be your best bet. So our next meeting, we're going to actually just hold office hours. We're going to kind of use the Q&A function and do our best to provide some office hours sometime in February, and we'll provide more details to the benchmarking and reporting working group email list. So that's to come. And with that, turn it back over to you, Sam.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Decarb. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for being here. And we've got 10 minutes left. We got through FAQs, so let's dive into the Q&As and see what people want to know. So just a reminder, Q&A feature, bottom right-hand corner of the screen, circle, triangle, square. If you submit your questions in the Q&A feature there, we'll work to get to them before the end of today, but if not, we'll work to get to them in future sessions, or maybe host other FAQs with Dr. Decarb like we just did to hit those frequently asked ones. So let's dive right in. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. So, Dr. Decarb, when you're ready, I've got a question for you. How to share, how do I share my property in Portfolio Manager with MDE? Think you can work on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. It's a couple of steps that we talked about right at the beginning, where you're going to have to first connect with MDE. And then after you've connected with MDE and we've accepted that kind of friend request, we'll then accept it. You'll see that and you'll be able to then share your properties with MDE. And for the detailed guidance, it's the MD-BEPS is our account. For detailed guidance, look at that benchmarking guide that we've dropped in the chat, I believe. If we haven't, let's make sure we do it right now, Sam and Chris. But that benchmarking guide has a step-by-step with screenshots of how to connect and share with MDE. And so that's, I encourage you to go read that because that's going to be exactly how to do it. So hopefully that will answer your question.
Thank you, Zach. And I saw we got a hand raise, and I just note that if you have a question, please submit it in the Q&A feature because mics are disabled. So circle, triangle, square, bottom right-hand corner if you have a question. All right, moving on to the next one. When you're ready, Dr. Decarb. Let me see. Some of these are looking, there's a couple similar questions here regarding campuses and campus compliance and how campus owners and those that opt into the pathway, how they benchmark and obtain a campus, a unique building identifier or UBID. Do you think you could maybe speak on that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sam mentioned this earlier. Right now, we've got a bunch of exemption forms up in the portal. There are more forms coming. We just had comments. Some of the kind of comment deadlines for these forms were out to the 15th of the month. And so we're still working through some of the comments you all submitted and making revisions to those forms before we post them. So they're coming soon. And those will be up. So campus compliance is an example, district energy or some other forms that are going to go up on the portal soon in the coming weeks. And at that point, if you're applying for campus compliance, you're going to submit one of those forms where you're going to list the buildings on your campus and put a few other information. And then we'll generate, just like a new UBID request, we'll generate a UBID for your entire campus. And so that's coming. It's not there just yet. Again, you can start benchmarking down that campus pathway before you've gotten your campus UBID, but that's the key. That will be coming soon. And I just also want to note, if you've got questions about campuses, we shared a draft of the campus compliance form and process this fall. Well, actually, before I even dive in, there is the benchmarking guidance for campus compliance is in our benchmarking guide right now. So there's a whole section on campus compliance. Read that. That's going to tell you all the steps for what you need to do as a campus. The form will be coming, and that's kind of the next key step. And we'll be providing a single campus UBID. So hopefully that'll answer most of those questions. We'll probably let everybody know that is subscribed to our campus working group once we've released that campus compliance form and hold a webinar to talk through all of that again. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Zach. I see a question about, I think we answered this, so I'm just going to rehash it real fast, but if a building meets reporting criteria, but a building ID is not listed, how does a building get an ID? So Zach talked about that on the portal. If your building is not listed, you can submit a request to be added and then generate a UBID. So if you have any more questions on that process, let us know, but I think the portal Get Started page and the website will be great resource for you. So I think this next one's a good one for you, Dr. Decarb. Do properties in Montgomery County need to submit to both ordinances, the Montgomery County BEPS and also the state BEPS?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And the answer is yes. And so we have in the guidance a section on special cases. There's a whole section on it. And one of those special cases is Montgomery County. And so buildings in Montgomery County, I encourage you to read that section because it's going to walk you through what you have to do if you're in Montgomery County. It's going to tell you, basically kind of orient you to the rest of the guide. The good news is if you're already benchmarking for Montgomery County, you've done most of the hard work. There's a handful of things. If you've got a food service facility, for example, you've got to enter that. That's an exemption only in the Maryland BEPS. And so that's something where you would have to follow our specific guidance on exemptions. We have specific instructions for buildings in Montgomery County to make that happen and do that well. You'll need to go to your existing portfolio manager account and add that UBID that Chris showed earlier for MDE. And that will then make it so that you can connect and share with MDE and Montgomery County both. And the good news again is you're done most of the work already. So it should be a pretty low lift.
All right. Thank you, Zach, and thanks for that question. So just time check, 2 minutes left. And so, if you have any questions remaining, submit them in that Q&A feature. We'll log them and, work to get to them in future sessions. But I think we'll probably have time for one more session for today, or question for today. So Zach, when viewing the portal, the BEPS portal, this person saw schools included in the list, and they want to know, is the plan to automatically remove these schools from it since they qualify as an exemption, and are other predefined exempt buildings going to be removed?
Yeah, this is a great question. So per the regulation, buildings actually have to apply for exemption. And so we have, so if you see a school there, a lot of times it's actually something else. We found that sometimes colleges and universities got categorized as a K-12 school. So there's definitely some changing that's going to happen in that list over time. We have on schools specifically, we got a bunch of those are going to show up as exempt coming soon. But for most of the other property types, you do need to apply separately for exemption. So if you see your building listed, or if you're a covered building size, but you're exempt and you're not listed, you do need to get added to the list and then apply for exemption. And we have all those forms for exemption to do just that. And this really has to do with just the data that's available at the building level is basically non-existent to whether it actually meets the criteria for exemption. And so everyone is going to need to apply. Hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Zach, and thanks for that question. That's 3 o'clock, folks. So thank you for attending today's webinar. If we didn't get to your question, I'm sorry about that, but we will work to get to them in future sessions. And you can always contact us via the info on the screen with any other lingering thoughts or questions. So really appreciate you all attending, and stay tuned for those office hours Zach mentioned. We'll be sending some emails out to those who subscribe to the benchmarking and reporting email list. So and we'll also notify you when the recording goes up on YouTube, and all materials distributed today will be in that video description. So we're concluding today's session. Thank you all, and see you next time.